I don't think I need to take out loans or anything, but should I anyway?
Maybe. We'll definitely talk about the 2 SBA options that are available to you, one of which is fairly low risk. So I would never advise taking
You're
out
gonna do pronouns now on Seesaw.
No, it's adverbs.
No, this one is pronoun.
About
Proper noun. Sorry.
getting, like, once the doors open.
You know how to do that?
Tips on budgeting.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that.
It's fine. It's fine.
Is that my
I'm
straw?
going to mute everybody.
What is that for? Where did it come from?
Yeah, if you could just make sure that you are on mute, that way it's not a crazy free-for-all, but I promise we'll open it up at the end. So thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Nicole, for those of you that I haven't yet connected with. I'm really happy that you signed up for this, and I'm just hoping that I can be helpful in some way as, a fellow studio owner and a business consultant. So the way we'll do this is for the next maybe 30-40 minutes or so, I will do a presentation. If you guys have questions, if they come up as I'm talking, you can just pop them into the chat box and I'll try to respond in real time. And then for the last 20 minutes, I'll open it up for question and answer. And if I know the answer to your question, I will answer it. And if I need to refer out, one of the good things about being affiliated with MindBody is that I have access to their network of business consultants. So if I don't know the answer to one of your questions, I can pretty easily find someone who does. So I'm just going to do a screen share here with you. Oops. All right. Can everybody see this? Let's see. Can you see my screen? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Great. Thanks. Okay. So today, of course, we are talking about some resources that are available to studio owners as we all kind of navigate the current climate and these extended closures and try to get through all this. So every time I do a presentation, I like to start with a quote, and this one is really speaking to me at this moment. It is not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. I talk about this all the time in my consulting practice. One of the reason that I've been able to be successful as a yoga studio owner isn't because I have all the secret strategy that nobody knows about, or I have the best funnels and all of this. I think what's made me successful is that I very quickly change what's not working. One of my coaches refers to it as failing forward fast, right? So I try some things. If they work, wonderful. If they don't work, I'm very quick to pull them off. And I think that we're all sort of arriving in this situation where we need to make decisions about what's not working really, really quickly. So we're all in this state of flux. We're all about to make some big changes. So hang in there. I'm just going to ask that if you're just coming on, if you could mute yourself, that way it's not a crazy free-for-all, but I see everybody and I'm happy you're here, Scott and Allison and all my people. So just in case you happen to be new to me, my name is Nicole DeAndrea. I've been teaching yoga since 2012 in varying degrees of intensity. So I know what it is to work a full-time job and try to scrape together a yoga income at night. And I know what it is to work full-time teaching yoga and really rely on a studio for my income. In the December of 2016, I opened Blackbird Yoga Studio in Haworth, New Jersey. And pretty quickly I was able to scale that business and get it running pretty successfully. So I became a MindBody certified business consultant, which means that I spend the vast majority of my time now consulting with other studio owners on growing their businesses. Some of you guys are indeed my clients, so thanks for being here, Ellen, and implementing best practices, managing challenges and things like this. So I'm really happy with the way that MindBody has handled at least the business consultant ends of things, because we've been meeting every single week to talk about changes in the industry and get some feedback from experts. So that's why I'm here to share that with you. I also created the Profitable Studio Strategy program, which is a 16-week hybrid program. It's an online course and a one-on-one coaching program where we can talk about growing your business. But today we are talking about COVID-19, and the order of topics is first and foremost, knowing your numbers. I think that right now, what we really, really need is predictable revenue, right? We need to know how much money is coming into our studios so that we can make the right decisions about what goes out. So we'll talk a little bit about managing your budget, reducing expenses, and making decisions about where to spend right now. We'll then talk about technology. So a lot of existing and up and coming resources available to you to get your studio online. So we'll go from like beginner, intermediate to advanced, the beginner level online studio, which is perfectly acceptable right now, all the way up to, the automated tools that you can use to streamline things for you. We will talk about the 2 SBA loans. So I know that there is a lot of confusion right now around which loan might be appropriate for you, who qualifies, how much money am I going to get, is it actually forgivable? If you think that's confusing, it's because it is. It's because things are changing every single day with these loans. So I'm going to share, as much as I know with you, but you really need to be your own advocate and communicate with your banker about this. We'll talk about your team and, how to best manage them. And then finally, what life might look like on the other side of all this, how to strategically reintroduce expenses back in, what's important, what's not, and how we can come out on the other side of this successfully. Okay, so if you're just coming on, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them in real time. Just pop them into the chat box, and otherwise we'll open it up at the end of the presentation. Okay. So we've been in this for, let's see, it's April 3rd, probably close to 3 weeks now. We've all seen this coming. So I imagine that many of you have already thought about reducing your expenses. If you haven't, I think this is the very, very first step for closures. So the first thing I'll have you do is take a look at your P&L statement, right? Your profit and loss, or your QuickBooks, or even your checking account. Anything that's automated, anything that is coming through, we should be having a conversation about. Rent is, of course, the big one. For most yoga studio owners, your largest expenses are your rent and your payroll. And if you haven't already, this is a perfectly reasonable time to be having a conversation with your landlord about rent abatement. A lot of folks are struggling with this. They don't know how to ask, or they don't know what to ask for. I think it's important to realize that, landlords are people too, right? Like they likely have to pay the mortgage on their building, so they may or may not be able to help you out. So when you go into this conversation, I think a smart strategy is to have a couple of different potential outcomes lined up for yourself, right? So obviously, the most desirable outcome is they just say, hey, you can have 2 or 3 months for free. Like, has anybody found themselves in that fortunate situation? Raise your hand. Cool, good for you. That's the ideal scenario. But if that doesn't happen, there are other options. So one of the things I'm seeing a lot of success with in my studio owner clients is offering to tack additional months onto the end of the lease, right? So if you need 2 or 3 months, but you're willing to extend your lease by 2 or 3 months, that's a good situation for a landlord, because it's much easier for them to retain you as a tenant than it is for them, and cheaper for them than it is for them to leave the space vacant and have to pay for that, right? So adding extensions has been helpful. Partial rent abatement, asking for a discount, maybe it's half off. Maybe it's a pay over time option. So instead of just paying your rent in a big chunk, you decide to split it out over 3 or 6 or 9 months or something like this. So when you enter the conversation, have a list, right? And just be open. I think that the most successful conversations are over the phone. If you can get them on Zoom, even better. Explain your situation, have a couple of different options, and hopefully something comes of it. The next thing you'll look at, hopefully, are your subscriptions. So anything that is a nice to have as opposed to a need to have. I think we need to look at canceling, suspending, or at the very least dropping down a software level. So I don't know about you, but I had like 6 or 7 softwares running in my studio, right? Like email marketing, texting, payroll software, Gusto Pay, all of that stuff. I was able to negotiate. So a lot of companies are offering a free month or 2 when you go to cancel. They're offering the opportunity for you to keep your current level of subscription for a lesser price. So anything that you need, but you also need to pay for, go and have a conversation with those people. Most companies are being forgiving. I know the big, huge question on everyone's mind is Mindbody going to give me a break? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. If you agree to, they'll give you a month or 2 for free if you agree to a year-long contract with them. Ad spend. So I've never said this in my entire life before, but it's probably not a great time to be spending a lot of money on advertising. So anything that you might have running, Facebook ads, Google ads, either turn them off or at the very least, switch the content so that it's advertising your online studio. Utilities, this shocked me, but a studio owner friend of mine was able to get $100 a month credit from Verizon just by calling and asking for it. So even the big companies are helping us out at this moment. So don't be afraid to call like PSE&G or your water company or whatever you have running there and see if what they can do for you. And then finally, the big one is payroll. I hesitate to use the word good in reference to this situation, but I do think that one of the good things about taking this break and reanalyzing everything in our businesses is that we get to change what hasn't been working. And with almost every single client that I work with, payroll is the huge monster, out of control expense. This is your opportunity to get that to where it needs to be. So the recommendation is that you are not exceeding 30% of your monthly revenues in payroll. So just to make the math simple, if your studio is making $10,000 a month, you don't want to be paying more than $3,000 a month to your teachers, your support staff, your managers, etc. So I need you to do that math for yourself based on what your studio is currently making, which is probably very different from what your studio was making before. So that's the reality. I mentioned this at the beginning of the call, but I think that probably the most important thing for us right now is revenue predictability. We need to know what's going to happen, right? So the best case scenario is that you've decided to keep your auto pay memberships running and you've moved your studio online, and as a result of that, you haven't seen a ton of drop off in your membership base, right? That's the hope, and that's of course the most predictable possibility, right? You know how many members you have, you know how much money the studio is going to make. The second best thing, in my opinion, is to price your online studio for the entire month. So a lot of studios are having big challenges with setting up individual Zoom meetings for every single class and having drop-ins and all this. It's just like a huge pain. And not only is it an administrative nightmare, but it makes it nearly impossible for you to predict how much money is going to come in from the online studio. And if you have no idea how much money is coming in, you have no idea how much money you can afford to pay out, right? So this is the time to really get a handle on what your revenue is going to look like. So sell the online studio at the beginning of the month, right? And flat rate, this is what it costs for unlimited access. You can see how many sales you've made, and you can decide what 30% of that is in order to decide what you can afford to pay your teachers. Full disclosure, I am teaching more yoga than I ever have in the past 4 years. Maybe that's not quite true, When I first opened the studio, I was teaching a lot, but very quickly I lightened my teaching load, and I'm teaching quite a bit right now just because I need to save the money on payroll. So do I think that teaching yoga classes is the best use of your time and expertise as a business owner? Probably not. Do I think it's the decision that some of us are having to make right now? Probably. Okay. So this is a healthy budget that I would recommend to anyone who I might be consulting with. This is under the assumption that your current allocations, meaning the amount of money that you're spending on operating expenses, the amount that you're paying yourself, I'm assuming that the percentages are less favorable than this, right? You're spending more than 60% of your revenues on your expenses. You're paying yourself less than 20% of your revenues, et cetera, et cetera. If you're already here, by all means, keep your budget here or make it better, by cutting even more. Obviously, the more profit, the more you're paying yourself, the happier everyone is, but this is a good starting point. So what this means is that we want to see no more than 60% of your studio's revenues going to your expenses. And that is all of your expenses, your rent, your payroll, your softwares, your insurance, your supplies, so on and so forth, right? Within that 60%, half and not more should go to payroll. So in that $10,000 example, I'm not spending more than $6,000 and I'm not paying my staff more than $3,000. I know that everyone is sort of in a different situation as far as their studio's role in their life. Is it your full-time job or not? Do you need to be taking 20% or not? If this is your main source of income, you need to preserve your owner draw right now. That's a non-negotiable. Which means most likely that you need to reduce expenses. You need to take like a big old machete to whatever you're spending on. If that's not the case, it would be wise to invest as much money as you possibly can into your profit account. The truth is, no one knows how long this is going to last. No one knows how much money you'll be eligible for, how much of that will be forgiven. So if you are in a situation to squirrel anything away in this moment, this is the time to do that. Questions about budgeting? Okay, great.
Hey, Nicole, it's
Yeah.
Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
I'm having trouble advancing the slides. Are you still on the first slide, or is there, and a few of us are.
No, I'm on budgeting. Am I getting chatted at?
I just don't know if there's something, like the first slide came up, but is there something we need to do for it to advance?
I don't think so. Hold on, please.
Okay.
Thank you for telling me.
Uh-huh.
Same here.
Okay.
I don't know. It said like your cursor was on present, so I don't know if you just didn't press present and that's why it wasn't coming up. I don't know.
This is exactly why we all got into teaching yoga, so we could learn technology. Ha ha.
Any better?
Yeah, now it's moving.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
We only got to slide 6 out of 19. All right. So if you want to write this down, go right ahead. But this is what we're looking at, as a starting point for a budget. Okay. So I imagine by this point, many of you are already, oh, okay. Sorry. I see some chats. No, an owner draw is how much you pay yourself.
Bad joke.
Okay. All right. We're in business now. So how many of you are currently up and running online? So I'm going to share with you a couple of different resources that are available to you. But before I get there, I want to talk about insurance, right? So many of us have thought about this already, but you really need to be in communication, technical difficulties, with your insurance broker. I think we're breaking the internet. Like we're just slowly. There we go. There are different coverages for live classes versus recordings. So I know that many of you are just streaming and many of you are just recording, but you need to have a conversation with your insurance broker about which types of coverages you need. My understanding is that some of the smaller insurance outlets are less likely to cover online classes, whereas some of the big outlets like Philadelphia Insurance Company are okay with it. So make sure that you're covered. In a similar vein, music licensing. I know that this is a hot topic for some of us. You do need additional music licenses in order to legally play music online. I'll say that. I'm understanding that audio quality on Zoom is not the best. There's an option when you go to screen share on the bottom left-hand corner of Zoom that allows you to share computer audio, which is a decent way of streaming music. A workaround that is sort of fun is I'm seeing a lot of instructors prepare playlists on Spotify and then just sharing the link to the playlist in the chat box of the Zoom meeting so that students can kind of play their music along. So is there like a really great cheap solution to playing music in your classes? No. Are there some fun workarounds on the internet? Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna ask if you're coming on just now to mute yourself that way. We can get this sound quality as strong as possible. So in order to set up your online studio, you need at minimum really two things. You're going to need your scheduling software in order to ensure that your clients are paying for your content, and you need a streaming platform. So my best advice is to keep your customers using the same platform that they're familiar with. We're already all learning so many new things right now. I don't know about you, my client base is significantly older. Trying to get them to use 4 different softwares is absolutely not happening, right? So at the very least, collect the payment the way that they're used to. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of good options for putting a paywall in front of your content unless you use a hosting site like Vimeo or something like that. So you'll need something to collect the money and to set your schedule. You need video conferencing capabilities. So I imagine that many of you are using Zoom or something similar, some way to deliver the content in real time, if that's something that you're promising. I will say for me that I think one of the most valuable things about hosting classes online is that like 10 or 15 minutes before and after class where they get to talk to each other. Like they absolutely love, you know, they were just talking about Passover this morning and having morning coffee together, and you know, the sense of normalcy is really valuable. So if you aren't yet streaming classes in real time, think about, you know, what it might mean to your community to get a little bit of time together every day. But you can also add value by allowing clients to access the content later so they can sort of practice on demand. If you're going to do that, you'll need probably a third piece of software, which is a hosting site. It's something that's large enough to accommodate, you know, the big files that are hour-long videos, hour-long classes. It is possible to share a Zoom link if you've recorded it in the cloud, and that allows your customers to watch the playback later. The issue that we're running into with that, with recording in the cloud, is that Zoom is so overloaded right now. There are so many people using it that it's taking I've heard up to like 3 days to retrieve your recording. So if you're promising your people, hey, you know, we'll post the class at the end of every day, the recording may or may not be available to you, which is why we're recommending recording it on your local computer and then uploading it to something else to host it. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. Okay. You'll definitely need some staff to carry this out. And again, based on what you can afford, this staff might be you, but regardless of how automated you get things, regardless of how, you know, fancy and techy this is, you're going to have questions. 100% chance you are going to answer questions about like, how do I download Zoom and how do I access the recordings? You will have people who unsubscribe from your email list who aren't getting any of your communication. You'll have people who won't understand what you're doing with their memberships. Like, I'm sure you're all dealing with this already, but someone's going to need to manage the questions. One cool thing that I heard on my meeting the other day is that people are either hosting live or recording test your tech sessions. So they're actually recording themselves, like setting up a Zoom account, getting your laptop set up and what have you, turning on your microphone as a service in and of itself. That way there's not, you know, mass chaos by the time everyone gets on the Zoom call. So I thought that was kind of cool if you want to just record something and send it out to your clients instead of having to manage a million questions. You'll need someone probably to moderate the live streams. So on Zoom, whoever's the meeting host or the alternative host or the co-host will have control to mute participants, which you want to do if you're recording it especially. They will have the ability to start and stop the meeting. What else can they do? It'll ensure that you don't have to be there, which I'm sure you don't want to be on every single call, right? And then they can also download the recordings to their local computer. So you'll probably want someone on your staff to actually be present. And then finally, someone needs to upload the finished product to a hosting platform. Another cool trick that I just learned about sound. Do you guys feel like your audio sound is a problem? Like, do you want to talk about that? Yeah, I see a couple of head nods. Okay, so some studios are having actually two teachers involved with every class, because the person who's closest to the microphone is the person who sounds the best, right? So they're muting the instructor who's, they're muting the demo person who's doing the actions of the class, but facing the video on them. And then they're having a second instructor actually verbalize it so that they can be close to the microphone. I don't know if you want to have two people doing it, but if you're in a position to experiment with it, why not? As far as video quality itself, not a ton you can do with Zoom, but I do want to say that I think we need to loosen the expectations that we have of ourselves and realize what our clients really want from us. Again, they just want to be together. They just want some sense of normalcy within their routine. They don't expect us to throw together like a professional level production in 3 weeks. They're not expecting that. And we spent a lot of time on our call this week talking about like AV issues and what's the best microphone and how do I position my lighting and all this. And it's like, at the end of the day, none of that matters. So give yourself a break. You're doing 1,000 things at once. Here's some other sort of, I'll call these the advanced options for hosting your online classes. So some of you may have heard MindBody is in the process of launching video functionality embedded within the software. So right at this moment, we're in the beta testing phase, which means that they are very much still working out the kinks with this. But what it does is it allows you to upload pre-recorded video only, there's no streaming right now, right into your site, and anyone with a login to your MindBody site can access the video. So what does that mean? There's no paywall functionality set up right now, so there's no way to monetize it. What it does mean is that it eliminates the need for that third software, the hosting software, if you're allowing your clients to access the content for free. So in my opinion, I think this really only makes sense for studios that are maintaining their memberships and they're allowing their clients to access this for free. There we go. I knew that was going to happen. If you're charging for it, the mind-body video functionality is not for you right now. The next cool thing, I'm really a fan of this, and if you do have the space in your budget for this, I'm going to go ahead and recommend it. It's FitGrid's integration between Zoom and MindBody. And what's really cool about it is it kind of replicates the booking experience for your students nearly exactly. So they just have to sign up for a regular class. The integration automatically generates a Zoom link, so there's no like obnoxious setting up of 1,000 meetings, and it sends it out to them before class in an email. Then they just open up the FitGrid app and they can stream it. So I think this is really cool. One of the things I've done with this presentation, and I'll send out the PDF version of it to you after we're done, I put some links in here of useful things, so you can actually read all about this integration. They're doing a free 30-day trial, so that you can test it out. And after that, it's, I think, $149 a month. Okay, Facebook Live. This is sort of I think the easiest thing to do with all of this. This is the beginner level plan, but you can, of course, stream your classes over Facebook Live. You can't host files there, but you can set up perhaps a private Facebook, a members only Facebook group where you stream classes, and anyone who's got admin permissions on your Facebook page can do it for you. All right. Any like immediate questions about the online studio?
Yeah, that FitGrid, is that in addition to the mind-body cost or
Yes.
included in the, oh, really?
In addition, yes.
Okay.
Okay. But they are doing a 30-day free trial, so take that for what it is. All right, here's, the big question, right? Everybody wants to know about the loans. Who's applied for this so far? One of the two SBA loans. Have any word? Have you gotten your money yet? Anyone have something to say?
I talked to them because I applied for the EIDL.
Yeah.
And was like, hello, I didn't get like a confirmation email, like I get it. But I did call someone and got through right away. And they just said that once you've applied for that, it does take at least 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then there was new information today, you probably saw it, Nicole, about the PPP loan. It even changed from yesterday. So I'm waiting, checking emails to pounce the minute my bank emails me. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. Anybody else like have an experience with this so far? Okay. So yeah,
I did receive that email with the PPP that you're talking about, but when I go to apply for that, it looks like it's the same thing as the EI, what is it? The other,
no,
yeah, that one.
Not the same thing.
Okay, it looks like the same application though.
They're two different applications for sure.
Okay, then I'll take a look again.
Yep, I actually have the links in this presentation. Okay, so this is so just like Ellen said, if you think this is confusing, it's because it is. It's because things are changing every single day. The guidelines are changing every single day. If you are waiting, I don't blame you, but this is the best information I have in this moment. This infographic came right from sba.gov. Please make sure that you are looking at the website that you're entering your information into if you are applying for one of these, because there are some scam sites that are, pretending to be applications for these loans, and people are entering their banking information into places that are not secure. So make sure you're looking at the .gov site. I'm going to try my best to explain to you the difference as I currently understand them between the two loans that are available for you, okay? So the first one is the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. And the change I think that Ellen's referring to that happened this morning is that they said that your payroll expense could include independent contractors, and that's no longer the case. So the loan amount is calculated based on your monthly payroll. It's your monthly payroll times 2.5. But that's only for employees. So my gut instinct is that if you're a studio that only has independent contractors, this one's probably out for you. I don't think the loan will be anything significant. If you are a studio with employees, it could potentially make sense for you to take advantage of this. So this application is the longer and more difficult one. And the reason why is because the things that you use the money for could be forgivable. There's forgiveness with this loan. It is dependent on whether or not you have payroll continuity. Okay, so it's called the Paycheck Protection Program because it's meant to maintain people's paychecks over this time. It's meant to keep them in jobs. So you're eligible for forgiveness of this loan if you maintain 75% payroll continuity between now and June 30th. Okay, that's what you would need to do to qualify for loan forgiveness. You can use the money for payroll expenses for your mortgage, your rent, and your utilities. That's it. Okay. There's a low interest rate, 0.5%. There are no payments for the first 6 months. And again, if you use the money for the right reasons and maintain payroll continuity, there is loan forgiveness available. The other option, and this is the one that I'm seeing more kind of small studios opt for, is the economic injury disaster loan. Okay. This is one where there is a shorter application. It's only 2 to 3 documents that you need to upload directly onto the SBA website that just asks some information about the size of your business, your annual revenue, what insurance monies you might be qualified for. If you have like a lapse in business insurance, they want to know about that. It's super simple because there are no forgiveness options with this loan, except for the $10,000 cash advance. Okay, the $10,000, if you qualify for this loan, the $10,000 cash advance does not need to be repaid. Money above that, okay, has a 3.75% interest rate for us for businesses, but there are no payments for the first 12 months. And there are also no like early payment penalties. If you make the money back and you want to pay it back early, there's no penalties for anything like that. So this is my best information right now about the difference between the two loans. Questions if I can answer them. So the $10,000 cash advance comes directly from the SBA. That's why they ask you to enter your payment information or your checking account information. Any money above that or any money at all for the PPP loan comes from a bank. So the best thing that you can do is contact your banker to ask about the best move for this. You can also talk to your CPA, your accountant. So within the presentation, here are the 2 different links to start the applications. And our next topic is, of course, for how will you pay your teachers? How will you pay your teachers? So this is the big question. I will say, like from the bottom of my soul, please pay your teachers a flat rate right now. Like there is just no reason to pay per head for an online class. It's not harder. They don't need to leave their houses. Like there's no benefit to the class being large when you're teaching to a computer screen online. There's no capacity limit for an online class. Many of you are paring down your schedules, which means there are more people in class than there typically are. There's just no way around it. You need to predict your expenses, and a flat rate is the only way to do it. If you're having sort of a hard time wrapping your head around the idea of changing teacher pay, just remember they might actually qualify for underemployment just because you've reduced their pay. So if you are thinking about implementing a flat rate for the first time, I just listened to a mind body presentation where the consultant was saying that the most successful businesses that she works with are businesses that pay a low flat rate per class. And it's not unusual in the fitness industry, in the gym arena, to see like $20 a class or similar. So if you need a starting point, which we all do, right? There's always some element of risk. You haven't yet seen your online sales. You need to just start somewhere. I want you to like really think about what is the lowest flat rate that you can stomach for your teachers for an online class. You can always adjust the pay after you've seen what online sales are looking like. So that's exactly what I did. I sat with myself and I said, like, what is the lowest I can actually let leave my lips for this class? And it was $20. I was like, I just can't live with myself paying less than $20 a class. I saw my online sales and finally realized I was able to bump it up to 30, which is the first thing that I did, right? So you got to start somewhere. It is what it is. If you're looking for answers about what others in your area are paying, you know, I'm in New Jersey. $20 is very, very low for where I am. I know that some of you are like on the West Coast where that sounds absolutely nightmarish and out of control. Pay rates really depend on your geographic location. So if you want to ask questions about what others in your area are paying, I mean, we can talk about it. You can post it in my group that has about 300 studio owners in it from all over the country. And MindBody One is a good place too, where you can find some candid responses. One of the good things as of this moment is that, of course, unemployment benefits vary by state, but your team might have options now that they didn't have before. So it used to be that they had to be employees. They had, at least in New Jersey, they had to generate at least $200 a week in order to even qualify for this. The good news is that state governments are loosening some restrictions around who qualifies. So your independent contractors will be eligible for something for the loss of income. I actually, both of my businesses, my consulting business and my studio, are set up as LLCs, and I was able to file for unemployment just because I'm, you know, making so much less money now than I was before. So definitely loosening the guidelines on this. So let your teachers know that they have options, even if you haven't totally let them go. If you've reduced their hours enough, they might qualify for assistance. I know that we all feel like this real sense of responsibility for our staff, but the truth is they need to advocate for themselves. They need to empower themselves to look into what their options are and make the best decisions. So don't feel like you have to present your staff with like documents about what they qualify for. Just let them know that they have options, and you can go from there. Another question I'm getting a lot is, you know, if I furlough my employees, meaning I don't, you know, I temporarily let them go, do I need to do anything? The answer is no. So if you have them set up in your payroll software, you can simply enter zeros and the government sees that, right? Like they'll see that they're making significantly less money or working less hours. Last thing I want to talk about before we jump into Q&A, just really quickly, is, you know, what might things look like after all of this is said and done. Again, I'm always banging the membership drum. I mean, if any of you have ever spoken to me, you know that all I talk about is the importance of predictability and being able to make intelligent decisions. This is super, super important. So predict your revenue. How much money are you going to be making at the end of this? What will your membership base look like? You know, we're seeing a divide now. Are people keeping their memberships going, or are they, you know, doing mass suspensions and charging extra for online courses? If you're not already suspending your memberships, I hope it doesn't happen to you, but I think you need to have a plan for what it might look like if you have to suspend every single membership to your studio. I think we need to be prepared for that possibility. There are lawsuits, you know, right now they're big gyms, but people are suing gyms for keeping their memberships running when they're not delivering, you know, an adequate service in exchange. So what will things look like? And then go back to that budget, right? Go back to that budget and start to make decisions about what you can add back based on what you can afford, okay? So how many classes can you afford to add back? Remember, 30% or less of your revenue should go to payroll. This is the perfect opportunity to get there if you've been dragging your feet on it, right? So how many can you afford to add back? Which staff members can you afford to add back? I didn't say this before, but I think you really need to do the math on whether taking the loan and keeping your employees employed at 75% of your payroll or just furloughing them, which one makes more financial sense? That's an important question to ask yourself. You know, do you yourself need to increase your teaching load? Can you afford to pay your teachers the same thing that they were being paid before? Right, you'll need to figure out your schedule and payroll first, and then start reintroducing expenses. So it's funny, somebody said this to me this morning, but it's not. She's like, I'm doing index cards. Like, I'm just going to do Rolodex. I'm getting rid of my software forever. You know, it's not an option for all of us, but I think you should, once you've created your list now of all of your expenses to cut, create a list of how you're going to reintroduce them, and only reintroduce as that 60% budget allows you to. Okay, last thing, don't be afraid to start over. It gives you the chance to build something better. I think we're all going to be so proud of ourselves if we're able to come out successfully on the other side of this. I will say this, some studios are not going to make it. Some studios are closing, you know, and I understand it. So there's nothing shameful in that, but if you can shift your perspective on this from the worst thing that's ever happened to you to an opportunity to finally fix what's not working, this could be a real game changer. So we have 15 minutes or so. I'm here for questions.
Yes, Nicole, should we be looking at this as I've been looking at it as like a temporary Band-Aid in terms of revenue. Like my revenue coming in is nowhere near what it was, those type of things. Should we be looking at it that way, or should we be looking at it as trying to actually bring in the same revenue that we did before, kind of a thing? Because I'm looking at it right now as just anything that comes in is great, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So the question is, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
Well, I think that, so what I decided to do is I suspended my memberships, right? And I kind of, on a wish and a prayer, hoped that the online studio would work out, which it, you know, it has, you know, to an extent. But one of the reasons that I decided to do that is because now I've sort of made the decision for my clients, right? I know when their memberships are going to restart. They're going to start the day that we reopen, right? So at least there's some security instead of seeing like drop off every month, right? So that helps me grapple with it, but every studio is in a different situation. So does that, I think that our clients will come back. I think that they crave us, especially after being stuck in the house for 3 months. They're going to want to get out and exercise. But I think we need to be prepared for every possibility. What else?
Is there any way that you think that we can incorporate like online classes into pricing once we get back to normal? Because I know there was a lot of people who have kids that just can't get out of the house, but they're able to take the online yoga classes. But I'm afraid that it would like kind of take away from my regular income at the studio if they're like, oh, I'll just do it online for cheaper.
Yeah, I don't think that, so that last part I don't think is the truth. I mean, there is no substitute for one-on-one attention, for
Right.
community, for the act of like having a place to go in the morning. So I don't think that online classes will in any way take away from your physical classes, because everyone knows you can get cheap and free yoga online, right?
Right.
There's a reason why they choose to come to you. So I wouldn't worry about that last bit, but absolutely you can repurpose the content. So I think one of the sort of fun things about this for me has been I'm getting to reconnect with people who took my class like 10 years ago. You know, I'm getting to reconnect with people who moved away from the studio. And so it's definitely a viable revenue stream, and you're creating all this content. Like, for the first time, you're creating video content. You can repurpose that in so many different ways. So absolutely, I think you can come up with a membership tier that includes online access or just online access for your folks who are far away. And it's a really smart.
And with the Zoom classes, like when we record them, sometimes you can see other people. So
Mhm.
how are you able to repurpose that later on, knowing that there's other people in the classes, or are you recording it a different way?
Yeah, so when you record it, you get an option to do spotlight view, and you can make sure that the teacher is within the spotlight, and on the recording, it will only show the teacher.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nicole,
Yes.
I have a question. So I sent out a
Good, my
constant contact every week in which I let people know that they can suspend, freeze their memberships at no charge. And I have had 14 suspensions since the beginning of this.
Yeah.
But I didn't go in and suspend everybody automatically. I gave them this viable option in 4 different times. Is that enough?
Meaning, so you sent out an email that says you have the option to suspend your membership, but we're not going to right now. I think, yeah.
I mean, I never said we're not going to. What
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. I gave them the option, let us know, you know, sort of with the idea that, you know, if they, and we are, you know, although it's a limited schedule, we are offering the Facebook members only group, and we are doing Zoom, you know.
Yeah. I think that as long as you've made it really clear that they have options and that you've acknowledged the membership, you know, what I don't think is okay is just to continue keeping memberships rolling business as usual and not acknowledge it and then say, I'm not refunding you because you didn't send them like a cancellation email or something, right? Like that's, I don't think okay. But the fact that you've presented it to them in a couple of different ways and they've opted out, I think is fine. You know, of course, there's the risk that, you know, you'll have a handful of people who unsubscribed from your constant contact emails and they're going to say, I never saw this. And you'll have to deal with that on a case by case basis. But I think that's fine.
Okay.
Nicole.
Yes.
Hi. What I did was I kept all the memberships as is, but I just changed their billing to be the same price as what I'm offering unlimited online classes for the next 2 months.
Okay. Did you communicate that with them?
Yeah, I sent everybody an email and I said, we're going to make the price less, because I feel like it's not fair to charge somebody a full price membership unless they say that they want that, you know, like it's not, they're not getting what they were getting before. So
this really is more of a question about communication than a question about pricing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you're transparent about what they're doing and you give them options, I think you're doing all the right things.
Okay.
What else?
I have a question.
Okay.
In regards to pricing, what are you charging for online memberships versus like I have an automatic monthly renewal for $99 a month. And I went to your website and I saw it was $119, but is that your online or is that your?
No, that's my regular membership price. My personal online unlimited access price is $80. So
Okay. I was just trying to get a ballpark of how much of a discount you're doing.
So I don't have any data on this and nobody does, but I can tell you that I suspended all the memberships and then gave online access as an option. And I had about 50% of my membership base to come down. So that's just my experience. But if you say, okay, I'll be able to get half of my membership base to do this, then that should help you set a price based on how much you need to make, right?
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Was this helpful?
This is fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So unless there are any more questions, this is how you can get in touch with me. You know,
Nicole, I'm sorry, I just have one more question. So you said that the payroll loan is no longer for independent contractors. They changed that?
Correct. Yes, they changed that today.
Why?
Because you're not paying into unemployment for them.
Okay. I wonder why they had that in there and then took it out.
sounded like a good idea.
Mm.
You know, that I can't answer.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so really at this time, my focus is on helping all of you. I really, you know, I have some good access to resources that maybe you might not, in that I meet with Mind Body every week, and I talk to other consultants. So if you would like to chat with me, I always offer a 60-minute free consultation where we can just get on the phone and talk about your challenges and see if we're the right fit to work together. For the first time in a long time, I'm offering one-on-one, like a one-off session. So if you just want to book a single consulting session with me, that's an option to everyone who's on this call right now, and I'll send out a link in the email. Otherwise, you can, if you have questions or something you'd like to hear about next, I plan to do this again. So you could shoot me an email, NicolePDeandre@gmail.com, or let me know in my group, or find me on Facebook, or whatever it is. Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will hopefully connect with you all really soon. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Nicole.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, my pleasure.